Something big is breaking in the motorcycle world. 3 major brands are on the edge of disappearing forever. In this video, we're counting down the 3 famous motorcycle brands that might not survive past 2025. They are all facing extinction due to a massive financial crisis at their parent company. Let's dive into our countdown of the 3 famous motorcycle brands facing extinction in 2025. Number 3. KTM. The Austrian racing giant drowning in debt. Founded in 1934, KTM began as a metalworking shop before becoming a motorcycle powerhouse. Throughout the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, KTM dominated off-road racing with their bright orange machines, winning multiple Dakar Rally victories and countless motocross championships. KTM's story is actually one of previous survival. Few people remember that KTM actually went bankrupt once before in 1991. Back then, it was rescued by Austrian businessman Stefan Pierer, who has led the company for more than 3 decades. Under his leadership, KTM transformed from a struggling small manufacturer into one of the world's most successful motorcycle brands, with nearly 380,000 bikes sold globally in 2023. The orange brand became particularly known for its ready-to-race philosophy, focusing on serious performance rather than comfort or cruising. What many riders don't know is that KTM also makes street bikes for India and Southeast Asia through a partnership with Baja Auto. These smaller 125cc to 390cc bikes help KTM reach a much wider audience. In fact, these smaller models manufactured in India account for nearly 60% of KTM's global unit sales, though the revenue from them is much lower than from the bigger bikes made in Austria. This global expansion was part of KTM's aggressive growth strategy, but it also stretched the company very thin financially. Today, KTM stands at the edge of financial collapse under a massive $2.8 billion debt. This isn't just guessing or exaggerating. According to many industry reports, KTM has officially entered self-administration to avoid bankruptcy. In February 2025, a rescue plan was approved that shows how serious the brand situation is. The numbers tell the story of a company in big trouble: $2.8 billion in debt owed to lenders, 3,623 jobs at risk across the company, at least 500 employees facing job loss before the end of 2025, production completely stopped in January and February of this year, an urgent need for $840 million in new money by May 23, 2025. Let me say that last point again. KTM needs to get $840 million in just over a month to pay its lenders and avoid complete shutdown. How did this happen? The crisis comes from PIERER Mobility AG, KTM's parent company, which also owns Husqvarna and GasGas. Under Stefan Pierer's leadership, the company grew too fast, buying brands and pushing production to new heights. But this growth created a dangerous debt situation, with a debt-to-equity ratio of 77.3%. This is a number that would worry any financial expert. That much debt became impossible to manage as market conditions got worse. The worldwide dealer network for KTM has started to show serious cracks as well. Over 120 KTM dealerships in North America alone have closed in the last 18 months as sales slowed and inventory began piling up. When dealers stopped ordering new bikes, the factory faced a cash crunch, and that's exactly what happened. KTM's warehouses in Madagascar, Austria started filling up with unsold motorcycles, which tied up millions in capital that could have been used to pay debts or suppliers. On the product side, KTM has struggled with reliability issues in some of its newer models. The 790 and 890 adventure bikes received criticism for electronic problems and quality control issues, which damaged the brand's reputation for bomb-proof reliability. These quality concerns led to expensive warranty claims and recalls, further straining the company's finances. The time and money spent fixing these issues meant delays in developing new models that could have brought in fresh sales. By January 2025, the situation had become so bad that Stefan Pierer stepped down as CEO, replaced by Gottfried Neumeister. This was a clear sign that KTM's parent company was in crisis mode. For riders and fans, KTM's possible extinction would mean a huge loss to the motorcycle world. The company's innovative ideas, from lightweight adventure bikes to fuel-injected two-strokes, have consistently moved the industry forward. Number 2. Husqvarna, the historic Swedish brand caught in the crossfire. Few motorcycle brands can claim a history as rich as Husqvarna. Founded in Sweden in 1689, yes, that's not a typo, over 330 years ago, Husqvarna began as a weapons manufacturer before eventually making motorcycles in 1903. Throughout the mid-20th century, Husqvarna built a legendary reputation in off-road racing, with famous riders like Malcolm Smith showing off the brand's capabilities. The silver, blue, and yellow motorcycles became known for off-road excellence. The Husqvarna name carries a legendary status among motorcycle historians. The company actually started by manufacturing muskets for the Swedish Army back in the 17th century. In fact, the Husqvarna logo is based on the gun sight from those early weapons. By the early 1900s, the company had diversified into bicycles and then motorcycles. But it wasn't until the 1960s and 70s that Husqvarna really made its mark on motorcycle culture, when its lightweight two-stroke dirt bikes dominated European motocross. Husqvarna's iconic status was cemented in the classic documentary On Any Sunday, where Malcolm Smith rode a Husqvarna. Steve McQueen, the famous Hollywood actor and motorcycle enthusiast, was also a Husqvarna rider, which gave the brand serious cultural impact beyond just the racing world. These golden years established Husqvarna as a premium European brand with serious racing credentials. The bikes from this era are now highly collectible, with vintage Husqvarnas from the 1970s sometimes selling for over $25,000 at motorcycle auctions. What most riders don't realize is how much Husqvarna had declined before KTM bought it. When BMW owned Husqvarna from 2007 to 2013, annual sales had dropped to just 6,800 units worldwide. The brand was essentially on life support. When PIERER Mobility acquired it for a reported 93 million euros, many industry experts thought it was a terrible business decision. But the KTM parent company proved them wrong, at least initially. By 2022, annual Husqvarna sales had grown to over 48,000 units, a seven-fold increase that made the acquisition look like a stroke of genius. The revival strategy was actually quite clever. Instead of keeping Husqvarna as a direct competitor to KTM, PIERER Mobility positioned it as a premium alternative with distinctive Swedish-inspired design. The engineers and many components were shared with KTM models, which kept costs down, but the styling, ergonomics, and brand positioning were completely different. This allowed PIERER Mobility to capture different types of customers without significantly increasing manufacturing costs. This reinvention seemed successful at first, with Husqvarna enjoying nearly 10 years of growing sales. That growth streak had suddenly ended. For the first time in 10 years, Husqvarna reported a sales drop in 2023, with global sales falling by 1.2% to 47,008 units. While this drop might seem small, it marks a critical turning point for the brand, and worse, it comes at the exact moment when its parent company is facing financial collapse. Some industry analysts believe that Husqvarna's main problem was product overlap. The Svartpölen and Vettpölen street models were too similar to each other and confused consumers. Both models shared the same engines and much of the same hardware, but with slightly different styling. This left many potential buyers uncertain about which model was right for them. The resulting customer hesitation led to disappointing sales for both models. By 2024, dealer lots were filled with unsold Husqvarna street bikes that had to be heavily discounted. If you love motorcycles and are having fun, drop a like and subscribe. Number 1. GasGas, the Spanish trials specialist most likely to go extinct. GasGas doesn't have the long history of KTM or the centuries-old heritage of Husqvarna, but it's built a passionate following in its relatively short existence. Founded in 1985 in Spain, GasGas built its reputation mainly through trial bikes, those specialized motorcycles designed for the unique discipline of observed trials, where riders navigate extremely difficult obstacles without putting their feet down. The GasGas story begins in the small Spanish town of Salt, near Girona, where two motorcycle enthusiasts, Josep Pibarna and Narcís Casas, decided to create a trials motorcycle that could compete with the Japanese brands that dominated the market. The name GasGas is actually a play on words in Spanish, suggesting the sound of a motorcycle accelerating. Back in the mid-1980s, trials riding was extremely popular in Spain, creating a perfect market for a homegrown Spanish trials bike manufacturer. By the early 1990s, GasGas has established itself as one of the big four trials motorcycle manufacturers alongside Honda, Beta, and Montesa. The brand won its first World Trials Championship in 1993 with rider Jordi Tárrez. This success helped GasGas expand beyond Spain into other European markets and eventually worldwide. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, the brand became known for creating lightweight, nimble trial bikes with excellent low-end power delivery. For decades, GasGas remained a niche player, loved by the trials enthusiasts but largely unknown to the broader motorcycle community. The brand faced financial struggles throughout its history, with various ownership changes and previous bankruptcy in 2015. Everything changed in 2019 when PIERER Mobility AG bought a 60% stake in GasGas, bringing the Spanish brand under the same umbrella as KTM and Husqvarna. By 2022, PIERER had increased its ownership to 100%. The 2015 bankruptcy is actually an important part of understanding GasGas's current vulnerability. After the global financial crisis, the Spanish motorcycle market collapsed, with sales dropping by more than 60% between 2007 and 2013. As a small company focused primarily on the Spanish market, GasGas couldn't survive this downturn. Production stopped completely in 2015 as the company entered administration. For nearly a year, it seemed that GasGas would disappear forever, joining the long list of defunct European motorcycle brands. A temporary rescue came from Spanish investors Toro and Black Toro Capital, who purchased GasGas in 2016 with plans to diversify the brand with electric motorcycles. They struggled to turn the company around, however, and by 2019 were looking for a buyer. That's when PIERER Mobility stepped in, initially purchasing 60% of the company before acquiring it completely the following year. The acquisition price was reportedly much lower than what PIERER had paid for Husqvarna, making it seem like a bargain at the time. Under KTM's guidance, GasGas went through a dramatic transformation. The brand expanded beyond trial bikes to include motocross, enduro, and even adventure models, essentially becoming a third brand offering variations of existing KTM platforms, often at slightly lower price points. This expansion dramatically increased GasGas's visibility, with the brand even entering MotoGP racing, a big change from its trials-focused origins. PIERER Mobility's strategy for GasGas was clever. Position it as the most accessible, fun-focused alternative to the performance-oriented KTM and the premium Husqvarna. The bright red GasGas motorcycles were typically priced about 10% lower than equivalent KTM models, with slightly less aggressive tuning and simpler component packages. This three-tier brand strategy allowed PIERER Mobility to cover more market segments without developing completely new motorcycles. This strategy seemed to be working at first. GasGas sales grew rapidly from just 8,000 units in 2020 to approximately 23,000 units in 2023. The brand successfully expanded beyond its trials bike origins, with motocross and enduro models accounting for over 70% of sales by 2024. The GasGas name even gained worldwide recognition when the GasGas factory racing team entered MotoGP, with rider Augusto Fernandez competing on the bright red race bike. Now, just as GasGas was finding its footing in this expanded role, the financial collapse of PIERER Mobility threatens to wipe out the brand entirely. GasGas's situation may be even more precarious than Husqvarna's for several reasons. As PIERER's most recent brand acquisition, GasGas has had less time to establish itself under the new ownership. Many GasGas models are very similar to KTM and Husqvarna counterparts, making them potentially redundant in a restructuring, and despite recent expansion, GasGas lacks the global recognition of KTM and Husqvarna. For a brand that's already survived one bankruptcy, facing another so soon is particularly challenging. GasGas's position as the third brand in PIERER's portfolio makes it the most likely candidate for elimination if the company needs to consolidate resources. The production stops and 500 planned layoffs across PIERER Mobility will inevitably impact GasGas, potentially more severely than the other brands if resources are prioritized towards saving the more established nameplates. If GasGas were to disappear, the loss would be felt most strongly in the trials motorcycle community, where the brand has its deepest roots and most distinct identity. The loss of a major trials manufacturer would significantly reduce options in an already limited market. Current GasGas owners face perhaps the greatest uncertainty of all three brands' customers. With the shortest history under PIERER ownership and the least established dealer network, GasGas owners could face the most significant challenges with parts, service, and warranty support if the brand is discontinued. Here we are, guys. The three famous motorcycle brands that are facing extinction in 2025 due to their parent company's financial crisis. KTM, Husqvarna, and GasGas all stand at the brink of disappearing from the motorcycle world unless PIERER Mobility can secure $840 million by May 23rd. Despite the seriousness of the situation, there's reason for cautious optimism. The coming months will be a tense waiting game for fans of these iconic brands. Which of these three motorcycle brands do you think most deserves to survive and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and watch our next video.